Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg, and today we're playing WoW Classic, but a little bit differently. I know it's not a great time to support Blizzard, but I mean, it's not really a great time to support almost any company. So, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? It's life. So we are multiboxing. So I'm going to be going over, this isn't like a how-to or anything like that. I'm just going to be going over how it works and my setup and showing off a little bit, just talking about it. I doubt this interests many people, but maybe some people are curious or just like to hear me talk about something. So multiboxing, of course, is not exclusive to World of Warcraft. Multibox pretty much any MMO. Generally, I believe their companies are fine with it because you just have to give them more money. I think like EVE Online has special restrictions. You can also multibox in like Diablo 3, and there's a whole laundry list of games you can multibox in. So there's of course dual boxing, which is 2 characters or 2 accounts at the same time. There's tri-boxing, quad boxing, 5 boxing, and then it goes up from there. Generally for WoW, you're either dual boxing, tri-boxing, or 5 boxing. Because 5 is a normal group size. Going beyond that's not really, there's not much point unless you're going with like 40 to do a raid or some shit. Maybe 10 later on in the expansions with like 10-man raids. But the raids also get a little bit more complicated. So anyways. So I started WoW Classic, of course, just with 1 character. And that's all good. I mean, that's how I mostly want to play the game. In the future, raiding and all that, battlegrounds, all that good stuff. I just want to play 1 single warrior. But multiboxing has fascinated me. I've never done it before this, and there's a lot of grinds and there's a lot of farming involved, and I thought it would be cool to do it with something other than just 1 warrior. So I started out with 3 hunters, because I figured 3 hunters would be like the easiest way to multi-box, the simplest, and it might not be. Maybe 3 warriors would be easier. But it's pretty simple, and at 63 hunters can farm pretty well, so that's pretty good. 3 hunters is pretty good. I got them to like 43 fairly easily. But then I was like, okay, I'm accustomed to multi-boxing now. I know what's going on. I want more complicated. And so I went to 5 and different classes. So now the 5-man team is a paladin, a priest, a warlock, and 2 mages. This is a fairly standard composition, at least for WoW Classic. You could do 3 mages instead. You could do a warrior tank instead. Those are fairly common. 5 of 1 class is common. Or also common is 4 mages and a priest with no tank. And there's arguments and debates about what's the most effective, blah, blah, blah. But I think having a tank in WoW Classic is pretty handy. Obviously, we're sacrificing some AoE DPS. And you could have the 3rd mage instead of the warlock, but I don't want to have just a slew of the same type of classes and stuff. I wanted to have a variety, and warlocks do offer some different utility and some differences. Yeah. So right now the group is around 30, 29, 30. One of my mages I had leveled solo previously, and he just sort of joined the group. So he's level 32. It's been going fairly smoothly so far. It's been a lot of AoE stuff since I got Arcane Explosion. I brought in the other mage and stuff. It's been going pretty smoothly. Only like very recently though have I finally felt comfortable just doing like dungeons. The paladin has struggled a lot with holding threat against like AoE, and it's still, if I'm AoEing stuff down, paladin is just sort of standing around while one of the mages tanks basically. Because the paladin had to go down the holy tree to get consecration, which I don't know why it's there, but it is. And so then I'm finally now working down the protection tree. So I'm starting to get a little tankier, but you know, I can't take that much abuse. And so the main mage has been doing a lot of AoE tanking just because he's higher level. So now that I'm starting to get more comfortable with dungeons and stuff like that, I'm on the dungeon track. Stockade, Scarlet Monastery, ZF, BRD, you know, all that good stuff. It should be fairly smooth sailing from here. With playing 5 characters, you really don't want to do almost any quests. You can do kill quests very quickly, but they're scattered around all over the world unless you have an exact route written out, which I don't. It's generally not worth your time. Early on, there's a few hyper spawns where these little patches in the world where enemies just constantly spawn, like they never stop. Those are really handy early on to level up. And yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at. I do want to get back to just my warrior. I want to get him to 60, but I wanted to get the multi-box group here to a nice, decent level where I could do a dungeon and talk about it in a video. So after this video, I'm probably going to switch back to the warrior until I hit 60. All right, so there's a few different ways to multi-box. The main concept of multi-boxing, pretty much, you know, nowadays, is being able to send commands simultaneously to multiple clients. That's what multi-boxing is. So there are a few different ways you can do that. There's a few programs and stuff. Some of them are free and harder to learn and trickier to use and not as robust. Some of them you have to pay for. And I think the gold standard nowadays is IS Boxer, which is right here, IS Boxer. And I'm not gonna like teach you how to use it or anything like that. There's a series of videos from a guy named Mirai where he goes over everything you need to know about IS Boxer. That was really handy for me. But yeah, there's a shit ton of stuff you can do with IS Boxer. Within a certain limit. I mean, you can't really, you know, it's not a bot or anything like that. It can't really do anything that a player couldn't do. The only thing that it does that a player couldn't do is like sending commands simultaneously to different clients. But you can't like break the game with this or anything like that. That's why it's allowed by Blizzard. You can do some stuff with like macros within IS Boxer that allow for commands, not commands, but like it's a more robust macro system because IS Boxer is interpreting it and then sending commands to the client for example, like you can put in delays. So like if you want to cast a spell and then 3 seconds later or something like that, like it won't send the command automatically, but it won't do anything for 3 seconds even if you're pushing the button. You know, stuff like that, or if then, you know, things like that, if statements. But overall, IS Boxer is not doing anything illegal. So primarily, since I'm sort of still a basic bitch, it's just here for me if I want to set up any custom hotkeys and things like that. You do this through this IS Boxer window. So by default, like it'll just have like 1 through $. And so those are mapped by IS Boxer. So if you press the 5 key, then it sends the 5 key to all the clients. But by default, like Y is not mapped. So if you press the Y key, it just, IS Boxer doesn't care. It just sends the Y key to whatever client you're looking at. You know, like if it didn't send the enter key to all the clients. It's not sending the Y key. But if I press E, that is a mapped key. So that's going to do stuff. That's going to send E to all the clients. Now, if that client or that character or whatever doesn't have E doing anything, then it won't do anything. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but yeah, basically you assign keys in IS Boxer. If it's mapped in IS Boxer, it will send that command, that key, whatever, to all the clients. So by default, it's pretty basic, but you can set up custom stuff. So I have F as a mapped key, E, Shift S. Like I have Shift S mapped, and all it does is just makes everyone take a step back, which breaks follow, so they stop following me, which is handy. Like if I don't want them right next to me when I run into combat, I can just do that, rush in, and then they'll all stand there and they can cast spells from a distance. Anyways, so the follow mechanic in World of Warcraft is key. Like I said, it's not a bot. I've used bots before, so I know how those work. A bot actually sends commands by itself to the client. IS Boxer does not do that. You know, it's basically just your keyboard and your mouse. You are in control of everything that happens. So, you know, I can move all these characters simultaneously if I were to do that. You know, I'm moving each character, I'm sending movement keys to all the characters at the same time, but this really does not work because of the way the camera system works and things like that. There's no way to finely control. They don't all move in the same direction at the same time and all that sort of stuff. It's impossible to actually control them all simultaneously. To an extent. I mean, like I said, I can have them all take a step backwards at the same time to break follow, but you know, you're not going to be like some grand wizard and you're going to be doing like some raids and they're all dodging fire simultaneously because your brain is just commanding, you know, it's not going to be that simple, or it's not going to be that robust. So the follow mechanic is key. You're going to always be pretty much having one character you control and then all your other characters just follow. Which is pretty annoying sometimes because sometimes I don't want them to follow this close. Sometimes they don't follow close enough, like when I'm navigating a building and shit like that. So it's not a perfect mechanic, but it's what we've got. Okay, moving on. Trying to think of everything I really want to talk about. So I guess, well, let me just let's get into the stockades here so we can actually start just killing stuff. Okay, so there, well, one of the main key commands, by default, it's Shift Alt R. You press that, it turns on broadcasting. This means that everything is now mapped. This turns on every key and mouse to broadcast simultaneously to all the clients, which means if you can see on all the clients, all the windows, the mouse is now moving in the same spots. So I use the mouse portion of this whenever there's like a quest pop up or something I have to click on or something like that, something where I can set it up so they can all click on something at the same time and it's pretty much positioned in the same place on every window. So that's the easiest way to do that. It also, of course, binds every key on the keyboard. So you could I don't use that as often. Sometimes if I want to set like the same menu option or UI option on all the windows simultaneously, you'll do that. So, you know, if I wanted to configure like EMA, you can do that. So they're all looking at the same like add-on window simultaneously. Or if I need them all to exit the game simultaneously, or I could just put my Hearthstone on my bar, but I do it this way by going to the character stuck menu, and they can all click the Hearthstone at the same time. Stuff like that. Anything that's generally related to the UI or quests or something like that. That's what we use broadcast all for. I also just used it to enter the instance because not all of them walked in. So then you just broadcast on, you take a step forward, and they all move in and go in. So it's used fairly often to broadcast to everything at the same time. Shift Alt M turns off and on key maps. So for example, I generally turn them off when I'm typing. So if I need to say like hello, you see there, it's no problem because I turned off all my key maps. But remember, I have E mapped in IS Boxer. So if I turn on key maps and I try and type hello, they're going to start their bullshit. because when I type the word E, it sends the E command to all the windows if you have key maps on. I mainly turn it off for typing. Whether in chat or in making a macro or blah, blah, blah. The other one, the only other key combination that I use a lot is Alt F, which is just the follow. So Alt F tells all the other windows, all the other clients to follow the active character. So you see, I pressed Alt F, they're all following my paladin. But if I switch to my priest, they're not following her, but now they are all following her. So this is called Focusless, Targetless, Leaderless System, FTL. Which means that I can constantly switch who is my leader, who is my active character, what they call the driver. So, because generally, you know, I'm fine just controlling everything with the paladin, but sometimes it'll just be like, okay, I'm doing some stuff with this mage. So just everyone follow the mage and we'll just, you know, it's very easy to switch, which is nice. As far as switching, you can just click on each window and that'll become the big active one. You can also do control Alt 1 through 5, which is not the easiest key combination. Yeah. So you might notice, or you might not, most of the action bars for these characters is pretty simple. I don't actually use that many keys while in combat. If I pull this guy, okay, and you see all the characters except for the priest are doing stuff, and I am only pressing the number 2. That's it. And the number 2 corresponds to different macros for each of the characters. So it's not just one spell. They're going through a sequence of spells as defined by a macro that I created for each of them. So 2 is just the basic DPS button for all of them. I also occasionally press 1. 1 is not a macro. It is just Holy Fire for the priest, because I don't want her to constantly DPS like the others. She's my healer. But occasionally, if there's no urgency for healing, I have Holy Fire for her to throw in some DPS. So if I'm not AoEing and I'm just doing some single target stuff, I am only pressing the number 2 on the keyboard and occasionally a number 1. That's it. And that's going to provide some pretty solid DPS. For the Paladin, this runs through basically just applying my Seal of Righteousness and then using Judgment every time it's up, and then reapplying Seal of Righteousness. It's pretty basic, but that's Paladin. For the Warlock, it's basically just doing a couple Shadow Bolts, and then Immolate, then a couple Shadow Bolts, and then Immolate over and over. Just keep Immolate going. I don't know if that's like the best DPS combo, but if I'm doing single target, my Warlock is usually number 1. So I don't think it's a problem. The mages, I think they're just doing a couple Frost Bolts and then Fire Blast. These are not complicated macros in any way. I mean, if I just show you the macro, it's just cast sequence. It resets when you change target. And then it's 2 Frost Bolts, Fire Blast, and then it rinses and repeats. It's pretty basic. But I don't do that much single target DPS. Mostly I AoE stuff. So if I AoE, I'll explain the healing system in a second, but I'll just grab this guy. We'll run through here. This is a small group, but is that. I'll throw down a Consecration with Q, and then I just mash the E button. And we heal, and I just keep mashing the E button, because that's just Arcane Explosion. And that's that. So that's even less buttons. I finally got Hellfire with Warlock, but I'm working out the best way to do it. I thought I heard somewhere about just doing like a single tick and then canceling it, but that doesn't actually work, so I have to figure it out. Because if I actually let it run, the Warlock just dies pretty much. I can't keep up with the healing. So yeah, AoE, very simple. Generally, I pull like 8 or 10 mobs. I have a power word shield on the Paladin and the Mage, the main Mage. And then I just AoE spam, healing pretty much the Mage until everything dies and you move on. I went with Arcane Explosion just because it was the easiest. Because I planned for just Arcane Explosion and Hellfire spam. Other people are using instead like Blizzard and doing like the common Mage AoE routine of Blizzarding and stuff like that. And then there's the Flame Strike Blast Wave group. Sort of just stunning enemies with Blast Nova and Fire Strike, Flame Strike. So you can go any of the different routes. I went with Arcane Explosion because it's literally easiest. I don't have to target anything. If you go with Blizzard or Flame Strike, you have to you know, physically aim this circle and target it, which is not impossible by any means with multiboxing. I mean, you can certainly set it up so you have multiple characters aiming at the same time with one of these AoE circles. But you also have to make it so that they're all sharing the same camera view. So they all have the same view. Because if you have one character that's like looking like this or something like that, and you have another character looking here, you know, those circles are not gonna, because you're just controlling the mouse simultaneously. So even though the mouses will be at the same position on the screen, the circle will not be unless your camera view is perfectly lined up. And they do provide a way to handle that in game. If you go to the camera key bindings, you can set view and save view, stuff like that. So if you want, you can just, I mean, Stockades is a terrible example because it's a short ceiling, but you could just set a view to perfectly vertical, or, you know, something like that. You can set a predefined view for each window that matches up perfectly, so all the circles match up perfectly. I didn't want to bother with that. I just went with Arcane Explosion. Okay, so healing. Healing is done through an add-on called Click. Click just lets you, it's a handy add-on just to have in general. So with Click, you can have it set up different spells corresponding to different mouse buttons, with some modifiers present as well. So you can do like Shift left click or Control middle click, stuff like that. And these correspond to different spells that you assign. So then when you're hovering over somebody's what are they, unit frame or whatever they're called, their little box, you can just click and that'll cast a spell on that person. It does this, you can do that, you can set up macros that do this as well with like mouse over and blah blah blah, but this is very simple, very easy to set up, and very useful. So, you know, you can just click, it'll heal. I can middle click and it will do Blessing of Wisdom on that person. And since, you know, you have to assign blessings a lot, I just do this. There's easier ways to do it. I could just set a macro and blah, 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 but that's pretty simple. Now, that's all fine and dandy if you're controlling the character actively, and I can just mouse over the name. But obviously the real appeal is being able to control somebody that is not a healer and yet tell the healer to do something just by using my mouse. So that's why we have repeater regions. So a repeater region, if you bring up the IS Boxer in-game control panel, you can set up a region of your client, of your window here, where within that region it will send your mouse command, your mouse cursor, to other clients exclusively. You can have it so that it'll send it to all the other things just within that region, but for me, for my setup, this region right here, along like half of my party frames here, this box, if my mouse is within this box, it will send my mouse cursor, the position of it, and the clicks over to my priest. So if you look, if you can see on my priest window, in the bottom middle, you'll see the cursor going up and down along with my paladin one. But it's not on any of the other clients. This is only on the priest. So my priest then has click set up, of course, for all the healing spells and shields and blah, blah, blah. And so if I'm within this region and I click on somebody's name, my priest will heal and my paladin will do nothing. So the left side, I have it set up so the left side, my paladin. This right side, it'll send it over to the priest instead. My paladin will do nothing. So doing this, I can just click here, click here. Both of them will do a healing spell on different targets at pretty much the same time. I mean, pretty much as fast as you can click. So I don't have to send any macros. I don't have to push any buttons or, worry if they're healing the right person or wrong person. I can just click, 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 and everything's, it's all working. Very useful. I don't know how I'd get along without it. I mean, you can set up macros, but it's way more cumbersome, like having like one button for each character in your group or something like that. It's just, this is way better. So that's how that's set up. I also have another repeater region. I have two more repeater regions. One is over here. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but you see I have this add-on of these green boxes is decursive. So this pops up if anyone is suffering from like a debuff that I can heal. So a paladin using Purify can cure disease or poison. I think there's one other thing they can cure, but I don't remember. I probably don't have access to it yet. So these 5 boxes here, if any of my characters become diseased or poisoned, I can just click on these boxes and my paladin will cure them. This is how decursive works. A handy add-on. My mage, well, both my mages, but I have it for one, can decurse. So it can remove curses. And I could do it where if I see that a character is cursed, I could just click over to my mage and then do it from here and just click on it and switch back. But, why not make things more convenient? So I have it set up with what they call a video FX. So this allows you to grab a section of someone else's window and just paste it into your active window. So you can always look at somebody's screen on your main window. Now, obviously, I can see, the decursive portion on my mage. So that's not the main thing here. The main thing then is that I can set up a repeater region on this mage decursive thing here on my screen, and that cursor will show up on my mage's screen. So I can use their decursive just like click from my screen. So I don't, I just have double the boxes, but from this little section I can pretty much cure everything just by clicking on it. I also set it up down here the same thing with the Priest Holy Nova. I could have just assigned this to a button, but I decided to do it this way for some reason. I don't use it that often. I can just click on it, and this also lets me see the priest's global cooldown. So, like if you see that little, I don't know what that's called, that black thing. So you can't cast a spell while that cooldown is happening. So that's sometimes handy. Then above that, you'll see that is the priest's cast bar. You don't have to. I mean, I could just look down and see their cast bar, but I find it much more useful to just have it right here. Especially during like a tense AoE session where I need the priest to fire off spells as quickly as possible. It helps a lot for me to just be able to see it right there and just queue it up as quickly as possible rather than my eyes bouncing back and forth. That's pretty much all I have for like video FX and repeater regions. Yeah. The only other thing to really talk about as far as multi-boxing then is Emacs, or EMA, which I showed you the window before. So this is not required at all to multi-box. It's called Ebony's Multiboxing Assistant. This is the classic edition. There's not much in here that you couldn't replicate just through IS Boxer, but this simplifies a lot more things. It just makes a bunch of little things easier for you to do straight out the box. So one thing, it shows me all my characters' XP percentages in this little window here. That's nice. It allows me to auto accept group invites from each other. So when I log in, I just press like one button. It sends out an auto invite to everybody in the group. They all accept automatically. It's very simple. It auto denies all duels, all guild invites. It auto accepts resurrections, but only from me. It automatically follows after combat. So after a combat finishes, all of my other characters will automatically follow my main character. It's not required. It basically just saves me one key press after combat. It'll also warn me if anyone breaks follow, which is sometimes pretty handy. It will also automatically share any quests that I accept on my main window. So it'll automatically share any quests to the other clients, the other characters, and they will auto accept them. So that saves some time. Auto completion, I couldn't really get to work, so I always just broadcast and do that myself. I mean, I have it set up so that characters will automatically vendor all grays, automatically repair, stuff like that. You can do this through Emacs, but I have like every add-on basically tacks that on anyways, so. So yeah, I mean, it basically just makes a few things handy. It's not necessary, but I like it. Yeah, so then as for stockades, I guess I'll just show off a few pulls. I don't have it down to a science yet. We might die, but oh well. So buffing, I just have it. I have everyone's buff assigned to one key. So all I have to do is target one person in my group, press that key. Oh, I turned off key maps. There we go. And then everyone that has a buff will apply the buff. So that's right now Blessing of Wisdom from my Paladin, Unending Breath from my Warlock, Arcane Intellect, and Power Word Fortitude. So then I just go down the line, click that. It's set up so that they will automatically, when that button is pressed, each client will assist the main character. So they'll get the target, whoever the main character is targeting, they'll get that target, and then they'll cast the spell. And you do have to wait for latency. You do have to wait for each client to receive that information. So if I switch really quickly on my main character for this buff, it might not actually go through for the other clients. Okay, it did because I have really good latency, but sometimes in combat you might switch targets really quickly and the other clients will cast a spell on the old target because they didn't get the new information yet. Yeah. So let's just see here. Stockades is really kind of an annoying instance, but it's the best we got. So we start by just powered shields on the Paladin, one of the mages. run in, pick up all these Frost Nova, as you can see, they're Frost Nova. They don't pick on me while I grab these other few. And we got the whole group. You consecrate. We're AoEing. We're throwing heals with click. I can have both the paladin and the priest heal simultaneously because the paladin's not doing much. They all run away, of course, because it's fucking stockades. I click this to decurse or depoison. Clean up the stragglers, and then I have it set for free-for-all loot so that any character can grab loot. And you just pick up everything on my paladin and move on. Pop off some heals. Depending on mana, you know, I can see all the mana bars. You either go again, or I'll just do a broadcast all and click on water, which is on everybody's bars in the same position. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a whole lot else. I tend to die if I pull too much and I just can't keep up with the heals on the mage, which is becoming a bigger problem. I'm going to have to sort out this AoE threat issue. I could put Blessing of Salvation, but it usually doesn't cut it. Or I'll die if there's some mix-up with a character. Either IS Boxer glitches a little bit, or the follow breaks. Like, especially like running through these doors, and like if I turn too fast on the paladin, like here, I'll show you. Like if I do something like this, they all made it through, I think. Yeah. But I found it's very easy for one character to just get caught. And if it's my main mage, then I don't have enough damage and I don't notice right away. Or my healer and I'm not getting heals and then I die. And stuff like that. Sort of just a problem with stockades. But oh, I also have another button for everyone's personal buff. I forgot to put that on. So that puts on Righteous Fury for the Paladin, Inner Fire for the Priest, Demon Armor, Frost Armor, so on and so forth. Yeah. I don't know if there's a whole lot else for me to show off. I mean, I'm only, like I said, level 30. We're not doing incredibly complicated stuff. But it is effective, I would say. I mean, we're level 30. I've done maybe like 10 quests with these characters, something like that. It's really not good to do quests. So it's hard to say. I mean, it's certainly not the fastest way I could be leveling a character to 60. But leveling 5 characters to 60, this will probably end up being quicker. And you get quite a bit of gold just doing dungeons over and over. My paladin right now is at 80 gold. And then I've got... Here I've got 10, here I've got 9, 12, 7. That adds up to something a little over 100 gold. Which for level 30 is not obscene or anything. It's good. It's not... I mean, if I were to just sit and play the auction house, you'd get probably quite a bit more. But yeah, like I said, I've just been enjoying the whole concept of it and the way it all, you know, figuring out what works, what doesn't, the trial and error of figuring out how should I set up macros, how should I set up buttons, how does this composition work, what's the best way to handle, you know, different situations, and it's just been an interesting little journey that I've been on, aside from, you know, just leveling to 60 normally with my warrior. But like, I mean, I'm not doing anything that's game breaking. You could easily do this even more efficiently and faster and all that with just a group of friends. It's just, I am my own friend. I am my only friend. So right now I would just go through stockades. I don't really do many bosses. They're not incredibly worth it if they don't drop loot, which these bosses early on do not. So I'd mainly just do trash mobs, and then run out and reset, and Bob's your uncle. We're probably gonna wipe now because I I have no mana. Yep. So that's a good way to finish things. Great. Yeah, like I said, you know, deaths have... This time I was just talking and realized. But it's not, you know... Unless you really know what you're doing. It's not just easy peasy, lemon squeezy, AoE everything in the game because you're so amazing, and... You know, you are not as good as a group of 5 players. You can't handle that many things on the fly. You can't multitask the same way 5 humans can. Yes, you can send commands simultaneously to 5 windows, 5 characters, but that's not the same thing. You're not as good. So there are limitations, especially if you are just a budding multi-boxer. You can certainly do more than one character could, no doubt about it, but like I said, you're not breaking the game in any way. But, you know, if you don't like to make friends and find groups and all that stuff, you can always do this. Yeah, so I just wanted to make a little video here just to talk about it, because it's been preoccupying a lot of my time, and usually when something does that, I make a video about it. But now that I've made the video, I'm going to go back to getting the warrior to 60 so I can get to molten core. All that good shit. But, yeah. You know, I know Blizzard, evil, bad, all that stuff, but when they repair their reputations, and you're looking for something interesting to do, try out multi-boxing. Even dual boxing is just really cool. Just have like a warrior and a priest or something like that. Pretty sweet. All right. So my name is Mangg. This has been a little bit of multi-boxing. I'll see you fine folks around.